The Insider Hit. And it's presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue.
Oh, goodness gracious. Never a dull moment with the Pirate. Give me more. And more and more. Right? We want compelling stories. Lane Train fined by the SEC. This is the Out of Bounds Show. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue. The official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds Show. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. So we started the show with a couple of things. The Lane Train was fined by the SEC for comments. I think he's probably got another fine coming today after some tweets on the terrible call against Ole Miss. Ole Miss versus Auburn, a kickoff late in the game, and could have easily cost Ole Miss the game. And then it's also National American Beer Day. So that's where we're going to start with our next guest, Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. And Lugs, it's National American Beer Day. So you like to have a cold pop every now and then. What is your favorite American beer?
Well, if I'm going to go light, I'm either going with Miller Lite or Coors Light. If I'm going to go leaded, I'll go with a PBR. And that's just on the American side right there.
Man, I love that. If I'm going to go leaded, I'm going PBR. That's a beautiful thing. Love it. How you doing, man?
I'm good, dude. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I forgot your address, but other than that, I'm doing – I mean, I feel like really well, but we're hoping that UPS will pull a rabbit out of their hat.
I hope so.
If not, we'll figure it out. Okay, Ole Miss Auburn. There's no doubt Ole Miss got hosed on the card. I think Lane's been doing a terrific job all year, but I thought that was his worst game day to date on several things going on. Some clock management issues, calling a timeout on a punt late. That's not Lane-like. The fake field goal, we could go back and forth on. Why not just run a play if you've got that kind of personnel? Just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the Ole Miss Auburn game day.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm not so sure that part of his reasoning on some of those things, not the clock management one situation, but some of those other things is right now they are so poor on defense and the amount of points that they are giving up, it might be, having an impact on the decisions he makes offensively because he's so concerned about that side of the ball. And again, I'm speculating. I don't know that for sure. But you're right. That was a very un-Lane Kiffin-like sideline performance. But listen, I don't blame his frustration level. I'm actually glad to hear the league come out and acknowledge that they should. I mean, here's the issue with that officiating call in my mind is, according to Lane, when he asked the official, "Hey, listen, is this under review or do I need to challenge this?" And the official says back to him, "It's already been done. They determined there was nothing to review." It was clear that was patently false. That was not a true statement. And so as a coach on the sideline, how do you say that as an official to a coach when, the game's hanging in the balance and it is a game that likely could, or a play that likely could determine the outcome of the game? At least say, "Yeah, coach, go ahead and challenge whatever it is," but don't tell them something that's not true.
Agree. With Lane not having a great day on game day, give me your thoughts on Lane trying to rotate QBs throughout the day, which I think is mentally taxing on a head coach / offensive play caller. It being a close game, a lot of back and forth where you've got to make decisions. Just to me, when you've already got a lot on your plate, whether you're Lane or anybody else, but when you're rotating QBs at that level, Lugs, how taxing is that on you and maybe distracting on some of the other things you're trying to do as far as managing the game?
Well, if it's who you are, I don't think it's an issue. And to this point for the season, it's been who they are. They've done that from the very get-go. It hasn't been something that they've just come up with. And I think when you know you're doing it and why you're doing it and when you want to do it, there's a very small package that you've employed. For example, what they may be doing with Matt Corral may have way more elements to it than what they want to do with John Rice Plumlee, in the sense that, okay, his package is smaller. We know these are the things we're going to do with him. And I think more than anything else, it's just to keep the defense on their heels, force them to have to prepare for a lot during the week. You don't know when it's coming. And also there's a lot of movement going on in terms of the backfield action, jet sweep, all of the counter stuff, misdirection, trying to get particularly John Rice out of the pocket and on the perimeter. I think those things are all smart. They're all healthy. I don't really know if I put too much stock into them being something that would detract from him being able to manage the game or make, forward-thinking decisions. I just think it's his way of trying to be as most difficult to defend as he possibly can. And on top of it, knowing that if they don't extend drives, they may not get the ball back for a while, because defensively they are not very good.
And fair enough. And he did scheme up some stuff where Yeboah missed a couple of passes and Mingo, which could have really moved I'm talking about 20-yard plus explosive plays that were missed, that he had the right call and Corral made the right throw, Tom. Right.
And again, you can draw up all kinds of ball plays, but it's the Jimmies and the Joes, as you've heard before, not the X's and the O's. Your kid's got to go out and execute. You got to make the right plays. You can't miss. I'll tell you right now, I've got Navy coming up this week. Navy doesn't even they look like a shell of themselves. They have a quarterback right now that, for whatever reason, cannot make the keys and the reads to an offense that has been in existence at this institution for 30 years. And their quarterback, for some reason, doesn't matter if Ken Niumatalolo is the master of the triple option. If you call the play and the quarterback can't get the play right, then you're not going to be very effective. And so I think that applies to everybody. You've got to execute what's drawn up.
Okay, let's go to Auburn. Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. He joins us on the Coors Light guest line. Coors Light, made to chill. Bo Nix, Auburn had a nice day offensively. Again, you just referenced the Ole Miss defense, so I'm not going to get too hot and bothered over that. It doesn't look like he either maxed out in high school or Gus Malzahn doesn't he's not really good at developing QBs, which it doesn't really look like anybody's been developed or looked good since 2013 Nick Marshall. So which way do you go with that one, Tom?
Oh, and you could make the argument that as a passer, Nick Marshall was one of the worst guys he's had.
Yeah.
When you consider Jarrett Stidham and now Bo Nix. I think the biggest issue with Bo Nix comes down to one word. That's accuracy. And the reality is he's not an innately accurate passer. He sprays the ball around. And for me, I think that's going to be something that will plague them the entire year. It will lead to risky throws that will lead to turnovers. I don't even know if I could put it on one hand how many more turnovers they would have if number 18 wasn't playing wide out for them. That dude bails out. Now, listen, I'll give Bo Nix credit. The back shoulder throw he made on the touchdown to win the game was a great throw. It was thrown exactly where it needed to be. But then you can go back to 2 or 3 other times during the course of that game and look at some of the throws he makes, and he just gets bailed out. And if I'm Gus Malzahn, to me, that's not player development. Either a guy is or he isn't. Can't develop or make a guy accurate if that's not in his makeup. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle for them all year long. I really do.
How about Malik Willis, transfer from Auburn? Hugh Freeze, who, say what you want about him off the field, is absolutely brilliant at offensive scheming and play calling and game planning. How about Malik Willis transferring from Auburn to Liberty, Luke's, and they're 6-0, and Freeze is trying to, it looks like, leapfrog having to go to like Bama as an OC and maybe positioning himself for a Power 5 job again?
Hey, listen, man, it proof's in the pudding with the guy. You said it best, regardless of any, external issues that may plague Hugh Freeze, the on-the-field product and the on-field performance has been proven time and time again. And, it's interesting because Malik Willis, he's not a guy that's a great natural passer either. We're not talking about, Trevor Lawrence here and, some of these other guys that can, really rip it. We're talking about a guy that's a pretty good athlete, that's good enough to throw it, and that's always a threat to run the ball. So, I look at some of these offenses and how they are working around deficiencies and accentuating strengths, and a Hugh Freeze definitely comes to mind, okay? I think Scott Satterfield at Louisville, all of a sudden that Louisville offense is starting to hum. There's certain teams out there where you're saying, all right, these guys are doing a really good job managing their personnel and getting the most out of their kids.
Risk reward for an AD and president. If Liberty's paying him right at $2 million, he's not going to go G5 because he's already making a ton of dough. So I would think if Sark takes a job, he goes to Bama, that could be in play. But he may just go ahead and get, land a job, especially if Muschamp, goes the wrong way. This is going to be fascinating to see him if he can get back into one of the major conferences, because he's top 1% on offense, bottom line. Tom?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the only thing, or one of the things he's got working against him, and it is to no fault of his own, is the current financial climate athletic departments are in because of the coronavirus pandemic. There are going to be administrators, presidents, and ADs, when they start looking at buyouts and they start looking at money that's going to be going out the door if they decide to make a change on top of the hit they're already taking, it might give some guys that where you'd say, hey, a job's going to come open, might give a guy a free pass for one more year.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Golly, I can't imagine if he stays at Liberty another year. Tom Luginbill on the Coors Light guest line. I want to go with this. Jeremy Pruitt mentioned he felt like they're closing the gap. Holy Mary Olzab, I must have watched a different game. So what? Tell me this. You got Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn, LSU, and A&M. None of them are in the same league as Bama. I know some of those that I just referenced are top 5 recruiters. Some are top 10. And worst case scenario, Tennessee is a top 15 recruiter. This whole closing the gap, we're 13 years into this thing with Saban in the SEC. And yet I just referenced some of the biggest brands in the league, and they haven't closed the gap. What gives, Tom?
They are not beating Alabama routinely on players at the most important positions, at corner, at defensive tackle, defensive end. I could make the argument that in the offensive line, Tennessee has made huge strides since Jeremy Pruitt arrived there. I don't know if the quarterback has advanced as much. I think we gave too much credit to Jarrett Garantano coming off of last year in terms of the strides everybody expected him to make. I think he kind of is what he is. What we've seen is exactly what you're going to get. He can look really, really good, and then he can have some series and some games where he's completely out of sorts and you can't figure out why. But when you look, when they say close the gap, as good as Alabama has been on defense up front and in the offensive line, the reality is where the gap is the absolute widest is on the offensive side of the football when it comes to playmakers. Mm-hmm. All Alabama's guys do is catch and score. When you watch them, it's not take the 10-yard out and run out of bounds. It's take the 10 yards out, put on the brakes, make the corner miss, and then turn it into a 60-yard gain. Or you have a quarterback. Because listen, when you turn on the tape and you peel back the layers, and I don't want to diminish how good Mac Jones has been, but there have been a ton of plays where he made a throw that he should not make based off of coverage, based off the look. And there was one last week against Tennessee. He threw the deep post down the middle of the field. I think it was Waddle before he got hurt. He just goes up over the corner and then elevates over the middle safety that's in the middle of the field and makes the play. The ball should never even been thrown there. But that's what Alabama's guys do that nobody else does. And I think that, to me, is what separates them and whether or not that gap is being closed and everybody else.
The Out of Bounds Show presented by Havana Smoke Shop. Tom Luginbill joining us on the Coors Light guest line. Coors Light made to chill. And we're talking SEC football. Luke's national college football analyst with ESPN. Can Bama win the title without Waddle? Can they get through possibly Clemson and Ohio State without an A-plus playmaker like Waddle?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a group, they are going to be just fine. In fact, I think you're going to see Slade Bolden step right in there, and now all of a sudden it's like a clone. It's like they have a cloning system in Tuscaloosa. It's just another one just pops in there. Their depth across the board at the skill spots. I know. I think, to be honest with you, the easy answer to your question is they might see more of a negative impact in the kicking game as far as returns than they see on offense with the loss of Waddle. And I'm saying that not to diminish how great of a player he is, but I think they have enough depth to be still be really, really good on offense.
That's impressive. What about Sarkisian? Tell me what you think. Like Kiffin, he had to somewhat go to, coaching rehab and otherwise. Yeah. But I know how much you like Lane, okay? I know that these two guys were given a lot early. They both got punched in the mouth. Kiffin's back. You love what he's doing as far as his managing a program at FAU, growing up. This new Baylor version of whatever they're doing, you know more about it than I do, looks really cool and dynamic and awesome. What do you see with Sark, and do you think that, especially with the year it looks like they're going to have, and if some jobs open up, that he could be headed out and he could be, number one or number two on a lot of people's lists? Tom?
Well, first and foremost, Sark and Lane are both cut from the same cloth. They learned under Norm Chow. They learned the exact same scheme, the exact same terminology, and they both branched off and started kind of creating their own little wrinkles and coming up with their own little versions of what they wanted their offense to be. I think both deserve a ton of credit for adapting with the times, adding elements into their offense that was not a part of those offenses at USC that were pure old school BYU type stuff under Lavelle Edwards and Norm Chow. That's right now Ole Miss and Alabama are anything but that. So it's a credit to their ability to adapt and create different offensive concepts. But the one thing I'd say about Sark is I think Sark's been through a lot. He's seen a lot. He's worked in a variety of different roles at both professional and collegiate level. He's been a position coach. He's been a coordinator. He's worked for guys that are easy to work for. He's worked for guys that are difficult to work for. But he's also worked now in a program that is the premier program in all of college football. And to see the resources that the program has, how those resources are afforded, what some of the luxuries are that come with those things. If a job is to open up, I think you're going to see a very mature Steve Sarkisian know what are the right questions to ask. What are the things that you have to have within the infrastructure of the program to have a chance to be successful, to build a sustained program because of the places he's been? And I think he's much better suited to ask those right questions and then educate himself on whether or not a job is the right job to take.
Okay. And I can't wait to see where he lands in the next year or two. He's doing I know they've got a ton of talent, but he's still doing a great job there. Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds Show. Back to Lane. We just received some text. How would you describe Lane's offense? What he's running today, Tom?
I would probably call it a multiple formation, personnel grouping, shifts in motions with actually very few run plays and pass plays. It is simplicity made to look complex. So when you're practicing all the same plays all the time, but you're doing it out of 50 different looks, you're not asking the kids to memorize a bunch of plays. They just got to know where to line up. The plays are going to stay the same. And I think that's when you have good players and you have trust in your scheme, you build the scheme around players, not plays.
You mentioned, all right, eye candy and all that. And it sure seems like that the coaches who do that on offense, it works most of the time, and who are kind of committed to that. Why do you think more offensive coaches don't do pre-snap motion?
That's a really, really good question. It's interesting because I was asking the same question of Texas Tech when I had them last week. I'm watching them, and they line up. They are in 11 personnel. They don't motion. They don't shift. They're in the same personnel grouping, the same formation, just about every snap. And you're watching them and you're going, gosh, I mean, this is awfully predictable. All people got to do is just line up and play what's in front of them. There's no eye candy. There's no things to get your eyes going in the wrong direction with misdirection. The answer to that question, I think, probably part of the answer revolves around what is the trust you have in your players. What do you think your players are capable of doing? Not everybody has Alabama's players. Not everybody has Ole Miss's players on offense. So I think a lot of it may be, what can our kids handle?
What if you've been a coach and your dad was a successful coach, and if Tom Luginbill was coaching today, and you're an offensive guy, you played Power 5 QB, what offense would you like to run if you could do whatever you wanted?
I would probably like to be in what Ohio State or Alabama is doing, where you're a run power football team with spread elements and heavy play action. I think that, everybody's so concerned with stopping the run, and when you have the weapons that an Alabama has, you better stop the run. But then when you try to load the box to stop the run, how the heck are you supposed to cover all of these guys on the back end? And then that's where the play action pass just becomes, I think, just so advantageous for teams. And, I was a guy that was a thrower. I wasn't a runner. I was a good athlete. I was probably in the Mac Jones, slightly better type of athlete, but I wasn't a designated runner. So, I was going to be a guy that was going to throw it and play off of the run game.
We got a minute. LSU at Auburn. Who do you like and why?
I like LSU because I think that offensively they're going to score a lot of points, and Auburn, I'm not sure, wants to get in a track meet with people.
Got it. Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. All the goodies are on the way, Lugs. Be good, brother.
All right, bud. Thanks.
See you, dude. Tom Luginbill on the Coors Light guest line. Coors Light made to chill. You're listening Out of Bounds. That interview was presented by Havana Smoke Shop for all the great premium cigars that you like and enjoy. Havana Smoke Shop, I-55 North, Frontage Road. Havana Smoke Shop, right across the street from Shaggy's at the Reservoir. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Welcome in. The Lane Train and the Pirate. More coming up next. Detillier at 8:30.